Part 80. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 821. Su Tong looked at the note in the carton, and after a few twitches at the corners of his mouth, he called out, "What a guy! Mr. Fu has taken his search to the extreme. You can give me anything, even if you give me 2 copies of your novel, I can accept it. If I don't lead you to play like this, if I don't climb Yushin, you won't be giving me this reward, right?" Facing the suspicious looks from his master, and Mr. Mei, Su Tong could only explain his climb to the top of Yushin Mountain. Hearing that Su Tong had the audacity to go straight to the top of Yushin Mountain and even enter Fu Jun's room, even Shui Gui couldn't help but admire Su Tong's boldness. What kind of person is Fu Jun? All the ghosts and gods in the underworld must obey his decrees. Let alone move a finger, if you want to kill Su Tong, just sneezing is enough. As Su Tong took out the golden pine nut, there was no entry in the prop booklet for this thing, so even the appraisal could not identify it. Su Tong Zhen didn't know what the use of this thing was. But as the saying goes, having an old man in a family is like having a treasure. No, when Su Tong took out the things, Mr. Mei laughed. "Ha ha ha ha, this is good stuff." Mr. Mei pinched his beard, took the pine cone in his hand, examined it for a moment, and said with certainty, "This thing is a rare treasure in the world, but you don't know what it is." Su Tong immediately became energetic after hearing this. "Mr. Mei, do you recognize this thing?" "Oh, isn't this just a fruit? How could I not recognize it? It's just that this fruit is extraordinary." Mr. Mei did not pinch and hide it, and said bluntly, "Anyone who has attained the Tao among the grass and wood spirits will naturally have strange fruits. Often one fruit is the essence of his Tao. The same is true for this fruit, but it is even more refined to this level. To this extent, this thing is already a divine thing in the world, and it has no other name." As a plant spirit, Mr. Mei knew how precious this thing was. It would take at least 1,000 years to produce such a fruit. So, this thing is for eating. Su Tong looked at the golden pine cone and suddenly felt that his teeth were not that good. "You can't eat it? It's too early for you to swallow this thing. The energy inside is too much to swallow, and it will burst you." Mei Lao returned the fruit to Su Tong and gave him another suggestion: "Make wine." The reason why the Mei family has so much aged wine is because Taoist Mai Hua obtained a 10,000-year demon essence, but the demon energy was so overbearing that it was almost impossible to refine it. So he soaked it in a wine jar, and replaced it with a new jar of wine every 3 years, slowly soaking away the demonic energy of the demon essence, and the wine became a great tonic. As for the shortcomings, it is that the time is a bit slow, but Su Tong won't need it for a while now anyway, and he is idle if he doesn't drink wine. When Su Tong thought about this, he simply gave the fruit to his master and took it to the wine cellar in the back mountain to make wine. As for the matter of Hades, this matter is not over yet. The master meant that he should be careful recently. After all, he had offended too many people in the underworld this time. The biggest problem is that Su Tong saved Lilith. This incident disrupted the plans of all the Ghost Kings. I wonder if they will take revenge on Su Tong for giving him little shoes or something. As for the Master Shui Gui said that there is no need to worry. As long as Du Ziren still needs him, he will never cross the river and burn the bridge early. Of course, Master Song on the side had to remind Su Tong, "If we encounter a chance next time, it would be great to capture 2 more gods." With Su Tong's current strength, as long as the godhead does not come to the world, ordinary god clones may not be his opponent. After Su Tong expressed his understanding, he went back empty-handed. "Well, this time I really went back empty-handed." Before leaving, you could hear him muttering about the iron rooster that Mr. Fu was. Time passed day by day. About half a month later, news came from Gao Zhou that his wife was pregnant. Well, now that the original plan to gather in Luodu was ruined, We can only change the plan and plan to wait for the next script world before gathering in Xiangzi. It was a coincidence that Su Tong and Chang Wuzi met someone when they were drinking soup in the morning. Who is it, Li Bo? Hey, this little fat guy has lost a lot of weight since I haven't seen him for a while. This little fat man was also unlucky. He was sweating profusely while taking a sip of fresh soup and a sesame cake. When he looked up, he saw Su Tong sitting in front of him with soup and pancakes. Seeing Su Tong, Li Bo shivered and almost knelt on the ground. Brother, there is no braised noodles store near here. Last time Su Tong ate 9 bowls of braised noodles in a row, almost costing Li Bo his life. In the end, he was even caught and seemed to have made the news. He was so embarrassed that he was thrown into his grandma's house. Fortunately, it was precisely because of Su Tong's report that Li Bo's life was saved. Now Li Bo never dreamed that he would go out to drink soup and meet this enemy again by such a coincidence. Hey, if you didn't tell me, I would have forgotten the taste of that noodle shop. Now that I think about it, I really miss it. Su Tong said half-jokingly. In fact, he was surprised to meet Li Bo the last time he reported him. He was using jail time to avoid the fatwa. But that could only save him once. It was surprising that this little fat man could survive until now. Don't, my waist can't stand it for the second time. Brother, I really have nothing this time. If you want script points or prop cards, you can take whatever you like. Don't do it again. It's embarrassing for me. Li Bo was crying and completely resigned to his fate. He even called out the prop book and let Su Tong handle it. Why? When Su Tong saw this, he was immediately disappointed. He was not disappointed with the prop cards in Li Bo's prop book, but suddenly felt that the unruly Li Bo, the one who dared to fight zombies, was getting farther and farther away from him. But it must be said that Li Bo has some brains and luck to survive to this day. Su Tong took a look at this guy's prop cards. There were no advanced prop cards, but most of the prop cards reflected one ability, which was to escape. Various escape skills, and the proficiency of 2 escape skills are all at full level. Well, he is a master of escape. Meeting each other means we are destined. We are also considered to be players in the same group. Let me give you a prop card. Su Tong casually handed the leopard soul cloak to Li Bo. This prop card had been with him for a long time, but it had no value to him now. Especially after some training at the training ground, Su Tong found that many of his prop cards actually needed to be updated on a large scale to free up more positions. Also given to Li Bo were 2 thunder explosion talismans made by Su Tong. Of course, they were not as good as the purple sky divine thunder from the old heavenly master in Longhu Mountain, but they were still quite powerful. At critical moments, they were enough to kill non-certified players. Even certified players may be seriously injured if they are caught off guard. After Li Bo happily accepted the prop card presented by Su Tong suddenly felt something in his heart, as if he had realized something. His brows moved slightly, and he thought to himself, it turns out that I owe this guy a karma. As the so-called cause and effect cycle goes, when Li Bo and himself returned, he took away the devil bell from Li Bo's hand. In fact, this also invisibly took away a piece of Li Bo's good fortune. Later, half of the relic was taken away from this guy, which was equivalent to taking away another opportunity that originally belonged to him. Since there is cause and effect, there must be retribution. Li Bo is obviously not the kind of person who dies easily. Although his luck is not good enough, his good fortune lasts for a long time, so he will not be an ordinary person. If he is allowed to continue to become bigger and stronger, he may one day be able to make this happen. Bitter fruit, swallow it in your stomach. It's just that I didn't expect that by drinking some soup today, this cause and effect was resolved by myself unintentionally. Thinking of this, Su Tong suddenly had some enlightenment in his heart. Yanshu was too domineering and plundered the world for his own use. Invisibly, he was entangled in cause and effect. So could the disappearance of Yansha be due to the inheritance of this sect, which had too many causes and effects, and was eventually replaced by the three religions due to the retribution of karma? Elder brother. Seeing Su Tong suddenly become silent, Li Bo shivered in fear, fearing that Su Tong might have some crazy thoughts to torture him, so he called out twice. Seeing Su Tong raise his head, he hurriedly said, "I have a piece of gossip, I don't know if it is true or not." As he spoke, Li Bo told the news he had heard recently. Su Tong didn't take it to heart at first. After all, Li Bo hadn't become a certified player yet, so the level he could access would definitely not be high. But the news still surprised Su Tong. It turned out to be news about Yang Zixuan. No, to be precise, it was about something about Yang Zixuan. It is rumored that the leader of the Shadow Group was suddenly killed. There was a guy named Yang Zixuan who actually became the leader of the Shadow Group after the script world design deceived many people in the Shadow Group. I heard not long ago that the Shadow Group, the regiment, officially joined the Demon and became a subordinate team of the Demon. I heard that the Demon is still recruiting people now. Do you want to give it a try? Demon is one of the 6 regiments, ranking 3rd. Although there is no powerful person with the title of Gunslinger, the leader is also one of the top experts. Demon is recruiting people openly this time, and it seems that it must have suffered quite a lot of losses recently. This is an opportunity to directly join a top team, but Su Tong has no intention of joining these top teams, because in his heart, Kimen is the top team in the future. Thinking of this, Su Tong glanced at Li Bo, suddenly raised the corner of his mouth slightly, stepped forward and patted Li Bo on the shoulder. "Good brother, do you want to join my team?" Puff. Chang Wugu, who was drinking soup at the side, almost choked on a mouthful of broth when he heard this. He looked at Su Tong and then at Li Bo suspiciously. This guy is not even a certified player, so why is he joining the team? Are you sure you want this kid to join the group? Chang Wuhen asked in the team channel. Certainly. Su Tong looked Li Bo up and down. When he opened his life icon, he could see the invisible luck behind Li Bo rising rapidly. He knew in his heart that his guess was correct. Li Bo was indeed a blessed person. If a short-lived ghost joins his own team, it is equivalent to forcibly raising the difficulty of the script. Instead of improving his luck will decrease rapidly, and even bad omens are normal. Moreover, in my team, there are people who can fight and carry, but there are not those who can do small things for the team. Since they are all choosing the younger brother, why can't it be Li Bo? The most important thing is that Su Tong still likes the arrogant and domineering Li Bo, rather than a submissive salty fish guy. Ding, you have been invited by Team 7, will you become a peripheral member of Team 7? Facing the invitation from Su Tong to join the team, Li Bo was stunned for a few seconds, and then sighed with helplessness on his face, thinking that he was going to be treated like a pig. But he couldn't refuse this matter, so he had no choice but to confirm it. But the moment he chose to confirm, there were prompts one after another, which made Li Bo a little confused. When he took a closer look, Li Bo was instantly the happiness that followed was shattered. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 822. Ding. Welcome to the Silver Team, Kimen. Ding. The team leader has opened permission for you to obtain the team skill Bleeding Rose. Please check the skill entry yourself. Ding. The team leader has opened permissions for you, the team channel. Since you are a peripheral member, there will be a 30-second interval every time you use the team channel. Ding. The team leader has opened permissions for you to share tasks. In the script world, you can share your tasks. Following the prompt, Li Bo felt so happy that he almost fainted. The silver level team turned out to be a silver level team. Li Bo had only heard of this, and had never seen a team of this level. Today I not only met him, but also joined the team and took a look at the team skills. When he saw the skill introduction of Bloody Rose, Li Bo almost screamed. "It's done, it's done." Li Bo was so excited that he wanted to take off on the spot. Fortunately, Su Tong thought twice and finally did not open the team warehouse permissions to Li Bo. Otherwise, if Li Bo saw the massive script points in the warehouse, he would probably be able to get through. "You have nothing to deal with, right? Come back with me after dinner, and I will introduce you to 2 more teammates, and also equip you with some prop cards." If Su Tong hadn't been younger than him, Li Bo would have knelt down and called Su Tong daddy by now. Those rough little chubby hands held Su Tong tightly, and he was so excited that tears came down. "Brother, I finally found the organization. Do you know how I got here during this time?" With Su Tong as his backer, Li Bo finally no longer had to worry. Su Tong said, "Brother, I will protect you from now on." He secretly sighed in his heart. Li Bo was very lucky, but his luck was forcibly intercepted by him every time at key points. Whether it's the demon bell or the relic, these 2 things have played a key role in myself. Needless to say about the former, without this bell, I might not have been able to win over the confident and ruthless master. The latter was very mysterious. Su Tong even suspected that the fat monk who traveled to the underworld last time secretly helped him because he had a great relationship with Buddhism, and the source of all this was the relic. What a coincidence, I snatched these 2 things from Li Bo. If this fat black man knew that the reason why he was living in such a miserable life was entirely because of himself, he would probably have the heart to tear himself into pieces. So as compensation, Su Tong's preferential treatment to the black fat man is still quite sufficient. Anyway, there are still more than half of the boxes of basic prop cards, so the black fat man can choose whatever he likes. As for the script points, that's not his share. Gao Zhou and Gu Zibai were a little surprised by the fat black man who joined, but they both knew Su Tong's temperament and didn't say anything about it. Instead, he also gave the eliminated prop cards to the little black fat man. "Of course it's not for free, you still have to give me script points, but you can take the credit on credit first, and then repay the debt after the next script world ends." This time, Li Bo instantly changed his skills, and his strength improved by more than 1 level. When he learned that the 4 core members were all certified players, Li Bo wisely positioned himself, a novice, as the little brother. Even if Chang Wuhan was allowed to be demolished and shouted around, he would not complain. This made Su Tong shake his head. It seemed that Li Bo, a fat black man, had suffered a lot these days, and his previously rebellious character had been smoothed away. Speaking of prop cards, Su Tong is also sorting out his own prop book during this time. "There are too many prop cards in my prop book, and I really need to sort them out. However, this matter cannot be rushed for a while, because there is still a problem that has not been solved. That is Amarda, the tenant. The biggest reason why I haven't been able to cultivate the Pure Yang Sword Code to the 7th level is Amoda. This guy is the product of the awakening of the dark item card demon power. I have to say that this guy has helped me many times, but now it has become an obstacle to my advancement. And because this guy helped himself upgrade the power of the magic power, he also made himself bound to this prop card, which could not be discarded, traded, or destroyed. The relationship here is like a landlord and a tenant. Originally, the tenant could pay the landlord enough, and the landlord was happy to let the tenant live for a long time. But suddenly demolition is about to begin. Faced with a large amount of demolition money, the relationship between the tenant and the landlord has conflicts. The landlord wants to demolish the house, and the tenant wants to be the thorn in the side. This is the problem Su Tong is facing now. So he planned to have a good chat with Ameta. As his consciousness sank, the cold cells appeared in front of his eyes again. When he opened the door, he heard the sound of a piano. Amota was dressed neatly, with a neat black tuxedo and dark brown buttons. His fingers danced on the piano keys, like an elf, and Su Tong couldn't help but be fascinated by it. When the piano music ended, Ameta stood up, put her palms on her chest and bowed slightly, then picked up the glass of red wine on the piano and walked towards Sutong. I knew you would have this day one day, and you wanted me to. It's okay to break the bond between you and me. Amota's tone was very relaxed, as if he was not surprised by the arrival of this day. Even when he upgraded Sutong's demonic power, he seemed to have anticipated this day, but Amota had already absorbed enough power from Sutong. If Sutong failed to break through Jean Deo, maybe he would also have the opportunity to possess Sutong's body. But now the situation has changed too quickly, and he has to change his plan. Staying in Sutong's body again will not do him any good. This guy does not have Lilith's heart, and his physical blood is too strong, which will actually wear him down. Strength. So without waiting for Sutong to speak, Amota simply put forward the conditions for unbinding. Help me find a physical body, a demonic physical body, the more powerful the better, just help me find this physical body. As he spoke, Amota handed Sutong a strange mark. As long as he found a suitable body, he could use this thing to force his consciousness to seize it. But this thing has a shortcoming. If you cannot ensure that the other party's soul is severely damaged, you will be counterattacked. Sutong nodded upon seeing this. This could be regarded as settling the cause and effect between himself and Ameta. Oh, by the way, as a reward for helping me, I can tell you something. With a smile on Ameta's face, he stretched out his hand and made out the shape of a key, the key that Lilith gave you. There are actually 3 in total. It just so happens that the second one is in my hand. Sutong was a little surprised when he heard this. What kind of key is this? Ameta held her chin. After thinking for a moment, he said, it is rumored that in the ancient past, there was a place. It is said that there was a place of creation there. Oh, you in the East call it the source of Chisu. It is rumored that there are things left by the original gods. Of course, this rumor is true or false. I don't know, but it's because of this key that I was exiled by the demon god of the West. After saying that, he handed the key to Sutong. Just think of it as a ticket to help me seize the house. Looking at the key handed over by Ameta, Sutong frowned slightly but did not reach out to take it. Then give it to me after I help you seize the house. After saying that, he turned around and left without looking back. Watching Sutong leave, Amota sighed with regret. This guy looks like a hound. As he spoke, a stream of black liquid flowed out of the key in his hand and returned to Ameta's body. When Sutong regained consciousness, he sat on the bed and thought about Ameta's words. If it were just to seize the body, it would be simple. But he always felt that Amota was not telling the truth to him. At this moment, the prop book trembled slightly, and a prompt sounded. Ding, the next scenario world will open in 7 days. Ding, the script is Capture the Dragon. The time is in modern times and the location is Hong Kong. Your identity will be randomly selected. The world of this script is a cross-regional hunting script. The task difficulty is high. As a certified player, Sutong used his privileges in the previous 2 script worlds, and chose to land in Gaozhou's script world, and the other time was a trip to the underworld. Neither time did I enter the script world in the orthodox sense. In other words, this script is his first script world after completing the certification. After getting the information about the script, Sutong couldn't help but feel a little bit excited. Hong Kong is a good place with a mixed bag of good and bad people. In fact, at the beginning of the age of ending Dharma, many people from all religions and schools chose to move to Hong Kong to escape the war. It wasn't just Sutong who got the hint, Gaozhou and others also got the hint one after another. Since it is a modern background, there is no need to make too many preparations. Bringing some gold is more practical than anything else. 7 days of preparation time is still quite generous. Sutong was not idle either. While sorting out his prop book, he would occasionally take the initiative to read those books. Early the next morning, We also took a special trip to Bamang Long Yuen Cemetery. Mr. Song's ashes are still buried here. I came here today to visit the old man's grave. He had a hunch that when the script world ended and he left Luodu, it might be a long, long time before he came back. However, when Su Tong walked to Mr. Song's tombstone, his relaxed mood suddenly stopped. He saw two figures standing there in front of his master Mr. Song's tombstone. A tall woman, wearing a corset lace dress and a black silk hat on her head, holding a sweet-looking little girl with one hand. It is a perfect match between a young woman and a Lolita. Even if she is standing in the cemetery, she can still become the focus of the audience. This is none other than his own mistress and the goddess whom he has not seen for a long time. The strength of these old ladies is getting more and more terrifying. Su Tong looked up and down his wife's body, and couldn't help but murmur to himself. With his current strength as a land god, he couldn't even see through the depths of this old woman. Obviously, after leaving the crematorium, this cheap master's wife's strength has improved a lot during this period of time. Even standing under the sun, Su Tong felt that the aura around this girl was like a huge shady curtain, which made Su Tong feel afraid. Sensing Su Tong's gaze, Ba Nu couldn't help but turn around, with deep dimples on her melon-shaped face, and waved to Su Tong. Seeing this, Su Tong could only bite the bullet and show a smile. Master's wife, what a coincidence. The lady looked at Su Tong's swooning face, stretched out her hand and pinched Su Tong's little face. It's not a coincidence, it was my calculation. You are coming today, and I specially waited for you here. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 823. Ah, so that's it? Master, you are really clever. Su Tong had a silly smile on his face, and he was already alert in his heart. Unexpectedly, she knew all the traces of the immortal on land. As the saying goes, it's no good when a widow comes to visit, not to mention that this widow, the master's wife, is a fierce one. Hey, do you think master has some shitty luck? Or is it that the luck of your seven sex is so prosperous that a golden phoenix suddenly walked out of a henhouse? There are not many immortals in the three sections. You seven sex are so stupid. The papermaker's business has actually led to the emergence of a land god. If the people of the three religions knew about this, it would be extremely uncomfortable. The lady stretched out her slender fingers, gently held Su Tong's face and looked left and right, actually seeing Su Tong completely. It's strange, how can you, with all your miscellaneous knowledge, still be able to master Yan Shu and Ruyi Treasure Furnace? After saying that, he took a closer look and suddenly realized, innate Taoist foundation, okay, you are really blessed, and this thing actually fell into your hands. Su Tong heard this and hurriedly ran away. He didn't expect that the master's eyes were so sharp that she could even see her own innate Taoist foundation. If you let this old lady look at it any longer, you won't be able to hide the color of your pants from her. He quickly smiled and said, Master, you have a sharp eye. Disciple, I can't hide anything from you. You are waiting for me here today because... Hearing Su Tong's inquiry, the concubine immediately turned on the mode of complaining about women. The look of resentment on her face made Su Tong's scalp numb. Your master, that bastard, left just as soon as he said he wanted to. I have worked hard to serve him tea and cook for decades, and I have suffered a lot. I dare not say that I have credit for it, but at least it is hard work. In the end, he simply left without giving me any inheritance. I went out for a trip, and when I came home, I saw that you, a good disciple, had burned down the house. You call me a weak woman, what can I eat and live with? The lady took out her handkerchief and cried pitifully. Her voice was so moving that the people who were sweeping the grave nearby couldn't help but glance over here. The corner of Su Tong's mouth twitched, thinking, if you are a weak woman, all women in the world will die. But he didn't dare to say this. After all, it stands to reason that Master's house was indeed burned down by himself. The princess suddenly stopped talking and became quiet. Su Tong raised his head and looked up, and saw that the lady had lowered her handkerchief to cover half of her face, and stared at him with her cold eyes narrowed. Good disciple, you don't want to leave the master's wife without a place to sleep. Su Tong felt a chill running down his spine when he was stared at by the slave girl like this. He nodded repeatedly, absolutely not. I will send you to see the master right now. Su Tong already understood what the master's wife meant. After talking for a long time, she wanted to find trouble with the master. What else is there to discuss? Su Tong is eager for their husband and wife to reunite. Well, master-wife knows that you are a filial child, but, this ugly daughter-in-law is always embarrassed when she sees her parents-in-law. What the naughty girl meant by this was that she wanted to get into Su Tong's virtual reality. Will be beaten out by the master. After all, although Su Tong created the gap between reality and reality, after passing that door, it is the territory of the master. Although the master is not as strong as the master, if he uses the authority given to him by Du Ziren and takes advantage of the home field, he can completely defeat the master. Get them out. No, 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 don't worry, my master has known about you for a long time and is looking forward to your return home soon. Su Tong was also talking about cheating. He remembered that last time when his master found out about the princess, he used it to scold his master. But at this moment, he can't care about that much. The door is closed behind you and your wife's affairs. You can make trouble as you like, but don't harm me. After just saying that, Su Tong looked at Tianyu. Will Tianyu go with you? Of course, this girl is my adopted daughter, my biological daughter. Isn't my biological daughter also your master's biological daughter? Come on, girl, call me senior brother. Hey, hello, senior brother. Tianyu poked her head out from behind Bayanv and smiled at Su Tong. Su Tong had a good impression of this girl. It was thanks to her voice that she called the grandpa at the crematorium last time. Seeing that she had called out her senior brother, Su Tong really had nothing to say. Yes, I was worried before that after the eldest princess and the old man left the house, it would be a lot deserted. Now it seems that instead of being deserted, it will be a lot more lively. Although this cheap master's wife most likely came to the door with bad intentions, but since she was sent to the door, I had my own reasons not to accept it. Besides, with the master sitting in the backyard, I was not afraid of this woman causing any big trouble. He patted the goddess on the head and said, "Be good, I'll buy you some candies later." After hurriedly cleaning his master's grave, Su Tong took the orphan and widower to a deserted land. When you reach the realm of slashing the path between reality and reality, it is just a thought, which changes the reality and reality around you, and a door quietly appears in front of you. Junior wife, junior sister, please come inside. Su Tong opened the door and walked in front to lead the way. Huh. The eldest princess sitting on the tree noticed someone coming in. She opened her eyelids and saw Su Tong walking in with a mother and daughter. She frowned immediately. Seeing Su Tong's careful appearance, he immediately felt upset and couldn't help but curl his lips. Hey, I said you usually don't look like a woman, and I thought you liked men's style. It turns out that you don't look like a woman. All the children in the family know how to make soy sauce. The princess glanced at the eldest princess, and took Su Tong's arm with a smile. If you don't learn well, you will learn from your master Jinwu Zhangqiao. Good guy, women are such creatures, they really quarrel when they meet. Fortunately, he was also a shameless master. He pointed at the eldest princess and said, "Where is she?" "This is the little wife my master has found for me. She is about to enter the bridal chamber." After saying that, he turned back to look at the eldest princess and waved, "What are you doing standing there in a daze? This is our junior wife and junior sister who are back, why don't you hurry up and help her? The eldest princess was startled. When she heard this, most of the sourness in her heart disappeared immediately. She didn't care that Suhwa Lily had taken advantage of her, so she jumped down from the tree and came up to her. But when I took a closer look, I saw the lady in front of me, with her front and back curved, and her posture. I couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. Is it really your lady? Of course, it's absolutely true. If you don't believe it, ask my master to come out. Su Tong patted his chest and promised. Ah, it turns out you are the eldest lady. Oh, you are so young and beautiful. I can't believe you are the eldest lady. The eldest princess rolled her eyes, and immediately slapped Su Tong's paw away, took the girl's arm and walked inside. Her little mouth was as sweet as if it were covered with honey, and she praised this ant to the heavens. The princess was almost smiling from ear to ear. She held the eldest princess's little hand and exchanged commercial compliments. This girl is really handsome, just like the fairy in the painting. As he spoke, he took off a bracelet from his wrist. Master's wife is in such a hurry that she didn't bring anything for you. I'll just give you this bracelet. It's master's wish. The eldest princess took it and took a look, and her face suddenly changed. The bracelet looked as smooth as jade, but when she looked closely, she found that it was made of human bones. When I touched it with my finger, it was actually carved with half of a pure Yangzhou Wangjing. The eldest princess was a little surprised now. She had heard that the Zhuang Sutra was an undisclosed secret of the Chunyang lineage. It was known as the first of all sutras in the Neodan section. Even if there was only half of it, it was still in the Taoist collection. And this bone, with its pure yang energy, was obviously carved from the bones of a pure yang master. The mistress actually took out such a heavy thing as she asked, which really changed the eldest princess's impression of it. But no matter how the eldest princess looked, she couldn't tell the depth of this junior wife's strength. In surprise, he couldn't help but look back at Su Tong, only to see Su Tong smiling and saying, "Just take what the teacher's wife gave you." "If so, thank you, madam." The eldest princess placed her hands on her lower abdomen, moved her right hand up, made fists with both hands, nodded and bent her knees to perform 10,000 blessings. What a good girl. It's hard to find a girl who understands etiquette like this nowadays. The princess liked her more and pulled the eldest princess forward. The old man squatting at the door was startled when he saw this. Not knowing what was going on, he could only salute with a smile, and then glanced at the goddess. His expression suddenly changed slightly, and he took Su Tong's arm. "Who is this?" She's the master's wife." Su Tong did not follow him in, but squatted at the door with Lao Tao. He took out the shredded tobacco that Lao Tao had given him before, put a mat in the pot, lit it and started smoking. Well, it tasted really good. "Where is that girl?" the old Taoist continued to ask. "My master's daughter." "Fart, that girl is not a mortal at first glance, and your master is not like him either." The old Taoist curled his lips. He couldn't see clearly about the lady, but he could tell by looking at the face of the goddess. This girl was born with an immortal look, which is not something that a human being can have. Su Tong was still unconvinced when he heard this and said, "My master is a dick or not, and all the slave girls are his wives." "Forward." The old Taoist fell silent immediately after hearing this, and poked Su Tong for a moment. "Is she really that kind of wife?" "Of course. We'll sleep together at night, and we'll just have to have a baby." Hearing Su Tong's words, the old Taoist couldn't help but take a breath and silently gave a thumbs up. "Your master is really a dick." While the two were talking, they heard a cry of resentment coming from the room, and then they heard the master's scolding, "You are a worthless thing, you already have a child, and you still dare to lie to me and say that you are okay." Su Tong and Lao Tao looked at each other. When they pricked up their ears, they heard the goddess shouting, "Daddy!" The sweetness of the voice made both of them feel sick. "Hey, why are you leaving?" At this time, the old Taoist found that Su Tong had already stood up and walked out, and hurriedly called him. "Nonsense, if I don't run now, I won't be able to run away later." After Su Tong finished speaking, he ran away without looking back. The experienced Taoists shook their heads and said, "What a filial and good disciple." Then I thought about it. Yes, it's hard for an upright official to stop the family affairs, so I won't stay here to get involved. The old Taoist stood up and walked leisurely towards the back mountain. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 824. When people visit the graves of their elders, they bring some food and drink, including gold and silver ingots. Su Tong directly bought the master's wife and a cheap daughter, and he was so filial that he was so filial. If it weren't for the master's roar, which was still echoing in his ears at this moment, Su Tong almost moved himself just thinking about it. As for what the scene will be like when the master meets next time, Su Tong doesn't want to think about it. In short, the evil dragon that is master wife should be surrendered by master. When you surrender, you can go back by yourself. With this cheap master's wife supporting him, if he encounters difficulties in the future, he can't watch his disciple being beaten. Although it's a bit unpleasant to cry for master's wife, but as long as master can hold on to this bowl of soft rice, Su Tong feels that he can still sacrifice for master. Su Tong's abacus was ringing loudly, and he was in a happy mood. Walking on the path of the cemetery, I even felt that the cries around me sounded particularly pleasant. In fact, he originally wanted to go to the 5th Academy, regardless of whether Old A and the others wanted to see him. But then I thought about it and let it go. Since I didn't want to see him, there was no need to bring trouble on myself. After walking out of the cemetery, Su Tong bought a meat bun at a snack bar not far from the door. While eating it, he was thinking about what else he had to do in Luodu. After thinking about it, I found that I had basically filled in all the holes in Luodu, except for Old A and his own life experience. But this matter obviously won't be resolved in a short time, so I simply didn't think about it. Since Old A didn't want to talk about it and I couldn't beat him, I could only put it aside for the time being. Just as he was thinking about it, Su Tong suddenly turned around as if feeling something, looked behind him, looked left and right, and saw that there was no one around. He casually stuffed the meat bun in his hand into his mouth, and shouted indistinctly, "Come out, you two." Su Tong Xiao's voice fell, and not long after, two people jumped out of the bushes. The two of them are still quite old, one has gray hair, and the other is already very old. But not only did the two of them jump out of the grass with a volley, they were breathing steadily. Su Tong glanced around and could feel that the vitality of these two old people was no less than that of a young man in his early 20s. After taking a closer look, they turned out to be two Chunyang grandmasters. I didn't expect that there could be grandmaster level masters among the three religions nowadays. It was really surprising. It turns out they are two Taoist priests from Quanzhen. I wonder what the two Taoist priests have to say. As soon as Su Tong raised his hand, the two of them immediately dodged away. It was only after this evasion that they remembered that it was rumored that Su Tong had already entered the Taoist realm, so there was no need to use methods such as mountain buckles to kill them. Suddenly the old man on the left, who could no longer tell his age, looked slightly embarrassed and said, "Infinite Heavenly Lord, I have long heard that the seven masters have now taken over the Plum Blossom lineage. Now it seems that he is indeed a dragon and a phoenix among men, the poor Taoist Chixin Genren. This is my junior brother, Chimu Taoist. I pay my respects to Master Su. It is indeed the Quanzhen sect." The reason why he could tell that the two were from the Quanzhen Golden Pill sect was entirely because he practiced the Pure Yang sword cannon and was naturally particularly sensitive to the Pure Yang energy. Therefore, the two people were far away from him, but Su Tong could clearly sense their figures. Just hearing about their origins, Su Tong couldn't help but think of his master's wife. Don't forget, master's wife destroyed Chongyang Palace not long ago. As soon as he entered the space between reality and reality, people from the Quanzhen sect came to the door. Su Tong didn't believe it was a coincidence. The two Taoist priests are polite. It's just that the two Taoist priests don't concentrate on practicing Taoism. Why are they following me? Su Tong continued to act stupid. Humph, Chimu Taoist snorted coldly, the demon girl ran here just now and disappeared. Your Excellency appeared here instead. We have heard that this demon girl came from your 7 sects. Akame Taoist was very aggressive and looked like he was coming to settle accounts. On the side, Master Chixin hurriedly extended his hand to signal his junior brother to be calm, then he saluted Su Tong and said, "This woman has an extraordinary background, and we don't want to be enemies with her. But a few days ago, she broke into my Chongyang Palace, killed my disciples, burned my Chongyang Palace, and took away the pure Yang Bone Jade bracelet. This thing belongs to me. This is the most precious treasure of the Quanzhen sect, please return it to fellow Taoist Su." Chixin Master finished speaking in one breath without even taking a breath, which shows that he has an extraordinary physique. Su Tong looked the two of them up and down, but he felt strange in his heart. The two of them were no more than masters. With the skills of the master's wife, it would be easy to kill them. But why does the mistress want to hide? Thinking of this, Su Tong's eyes suddenly noticed the sword bag carried by Master Chixin. He took a closer look with his supernatural eyes, and Su Tong was frightened for a moment. I didn't know what was in the sword bag, the pure yang was like fire, piercing the heart and mind. I looked around, but I didn't see the true shape. Now Su Tong probably understood in his heart that he was afraid that the master's wife had stabbed her in the nest and taken away her treasure. This would make her anxious and come to fight her with a big weapon to suppress the religious movement. No wonder this old woman keeps trying to get into the master's direction, because she is trying to protect her from disaster. He understood what was going on, but Su Tong really had no intention of handing someone over and returning the property. He looked at the two Taoists. He sneered and said, "Since you two know me, you should have heard of my nickname. Do you really think that I am a fool to accuse me like this?" As soon as these words came out, Chimu Taoist's heart sank. Ever since Su Tong killed all the foreign families outside the Yin-Yang cave in western Hunan, no one dared to provoke Su Tong, let alone go over the old accounts of Shuigui of the 7 sects. After Luo Tianda of Qingcheng Mountain took over, he took over the Plum Blossom lineage, shaking the foundation of Qingcheng Mountain and burning Qingcheng Mountain's 1,000-year destiny. There are rumors in the world that Taoist Dongxian was paralyzed by his anger, and finally chose to kill Luo Tianda. The new head teacher, Zhang Haisheng, even avoided his sharpness and chose to live in seclusion. It is difficult to tell whether these rumors are true or false, but one thing is that Su Tong is notoriously cruel. Seeing that Su Tong's words were not good, Chimu Taoist felt bitter for a moment, and said in a calm tone, "Fellow Taoist Su, please don't get angry. My brothers and I are here just to recover the pure Yang Bone Jade bracelet, the most precious treasure sent by Chongyang Palace. As long as this thing return it, let's forget about the matter of Chongyang Palace. Now that Su Tong is too strong, they don't want to lose everything, so they can only do the next best thing, hoping to recover the treasure. It's a pity that this bracelet was given to the eldest princess by the mistress. Su Tong couldn't go to the eldest princess to get it with shame. I can't afford to embarrass this person, and I don't want to lose face like this." As expected, the mistress had no good intentions when she gave the bracelet to the eldest princess. Su Tong sighed inwardly at this old lady's methods, and could only pretend to be confused on his face. "Okay, I'll ask her for you next time I meet her." As he said this, Su Tong was about to leave. Su Tong spoke vaguely, but now Taoist Chixin was not happy and stopped Su Tong. "Your Excellency is bullying our old man and his ignorance. This which has a great relationship with your 7 sections since you are the leader, you have no friendship if we don't hand over things. Are we going to leave like this? Is it possible for us to go to May's house to look for trouble? You dare? Su Tong's eyes sharpened and he shouted coldly, which shocked Brother Chimu's blood and turned his face pale. Buzz buzz. Fortunately, at this time, the sword bag carried by Akame Genren emitted buzzing sounds, which actually offset the aura emanating from Su Tong. I saw Akame Daoist opening his sword bag, revealing an ancient sword. The sword buzzed, and the vast pure yang energy rushed into the sky. It is indeed the Quanzhen sect that once dominated Longhu Mountain, and its foundation is really profound. Su Tong noticed that there seemed to be a sword energy on this sword, which was condensed but not emitted. Once it was emitted, it was out of control. I saw Su Tong's fingertips raised, and a pure yang sword energy rose along the fingertips. In an instant, Chimu Genren discovered that the murderous aura of the pure June sword behind him gradually subsided. This scene immediately shocked the hearts of fellow disciples Chimu Genren, and Taoist Chixin couldn't help but screamed, "Chunyang sword cannon! Impossible, how can you know my Chunyang secret skill?" Su Tong's fingers flicked, and suddenly a blazing sword light cut a 3-finger deep incision on the cement floor under their feet. At this moment, Master Chimu and his junior brother, Taoist Chixin, were instantly dumbfounded. This is genuine pure yang sword energy, and it is at least above the 5th level. Okay, you are indeed a group, and your purpose is to steal my Chongyang secret skill. Taoist Chi Xin was anxious and angry. He did not expect that Chunyang's secret art, which had been lost for many years, would fall into the hands of outsiders. He must fight Su Tong immediately. Fortunately, Master Akame was still awake and grabbed his junior brother. "Don't be impulsive." After saying that, he saluted Su Tong. "I dare to ask fellow Taoist Su, but after practicing my Chunyang Palace secret art, Chunyang sword code, I don't know where you came from." Su Tong saw that the old man was still polite and didn't hide anything from him. He just said, "Taught me by a drunkard. Drunk maniac." Upon hearing these 3 words, Brother Akame's eyes widened for a moment and he asked, "Who is this drunken madman you are talking about? He didn't tell me his name. He just carried a long sword with him. The sword was inlaid with a Hishan white jade. Oh, he has a senior brother named Duckweed Genren." After hearing Su Tong's words, the 2 brothers Chimu and Chixin suddenly burst into tears and cried in each other's arms. This caught Su Tong off guard. He said this casually, but why did the 2 old men start crying? "Ahem, you two, when outsiders see you like this, they think I'm bullying the old man. Aren't you just relying on your strength to bully us?" Taoist Chixin covered his face and cried until the pear blossom was raining down. He pouted his little mouth in grievance, which made Su Tong feel chills. Akame Genren was crying and shouting, "The ancestor has appeared, and my uncle finally has a successor." I saw Master Chimu speaking, wiping his tears a few times, pulling Taoist Chixin to Su Tong, bowing to Su Tong. "Chimu, Chixin pays homage to Master Uncle." Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 825. Seeing the 2 old men with tears and runny noses suddenly bowing down to him, Su Tong was a little confused. When he heard people calling him uncle, hey, even Su Tong's shamelessness was a bit unbearable. The combined age of these 2 old men is almost as old as that of the master. He immediately dodged and waved his hand. What are the 2 Taoist priests doing? Just listen to Akame Genren raise his head and say, "Since Master Su is the disciple of my uncle Kinga, he is undoubtedly my 2 master uncles according to seniority." This. Su Tong really didn't expect that. He just wanted to clean his master Song's grave today. But he didn't want to accidentally bring about the master's family reunion, and accidentally become 2 Quanzhen masters. I haven't passed the exam yet. No, I haven't officially become a disciple yet. Master Uncle, he has a free and easy temperament and does not adhere to common etiquette and conventions. Since he is passing down the technique, you are his disciple. Akame's words were very beautiful, his temperament was free and easy, and he was not bound by vulgar etiquette and conventions. If Su Tong hadn't seen a drunken maniac, he would have almost believed it. Don't you doubt me? After all, my age is not even close to that of your uncle. However, upon hearing this, Master Akame narrowed his eyelids, cast a meaningful look at Su Tong, and said with a smile, "Uncle, there is no need to explain, we understand." Su Tong thought to himself, "You know how to hammer." However, Akame Daoist pointed to the top of his head inexplicably, "Those who are chosen by God can obtain the divine edict and enter the 9 heavens and 10 places. In the past and future, they will wake up like a dream butterfly in Zhouzhuang or a wonderful man in Lank." What Chimugenran said was so shocking that Su Tong blinked, not understanding what he meant. However, Master also mentioned not long ago that the existence of players has long been recorded in the 3 religions. Obviously Akame's words seemed to be referring to his own identity. In this case, Su Tong stopped arguing with Master Akame on this issue. He thought that he picked up 2 nephews for nothing, even though he was a little older. What a shame, I really didn't take your bracelets. Don't think that calling me Uncle Master will bring them out for you. Su Tong always felt that these 2 old guys were trying to trick him. If you can't beat him, then join in. Isn't this your own trick? Uncle Master, we don't speak the same language. It doesn't matter whether the bracelet is with you or not. After all, it is something belonging to our Quanzhen lineage. You can just play with it. When Master Akame said these words, what else could Su Tong say? We can only wait for the old man to finish speaking. As expected, I heard Akame Master say. Although Uncle Master has taken over the Plum Blossom lineage, our Quanzhen sect has always had the concept that all Dharma comes from the same origin and the 3 religions have one ancestor, so we will not reject this. If you have leisure, wait until the 12th lunar month of this year. 20 years ago, I came to Chongyang Palace to participate in the ancestors' Christmas and recognize my ancestors and return to the clan. Well, let me check the time. He had just recognized a Plum Blossom Taoist as his ancestor, and then a cheap master's wife came, and he was about to drag him to recognize his ancestor as the Chongyang Patriarch. Since you didn't find your parents this time, why are you just looking for a second-generation kiss for yourself? Then it's settled. There's only half of the Zhuang Sutra on the bracelet. When my uncle returns this time, we'll give you the second half of the Zhuang Sutra. Yes, otherwise, ginger is still spicy. Is Master Akame really stupid? He is like a mirror in his heart. After saying this, Su Tong really can't find a reason to refuse. While the 3 of them were talking, they realized that it was already noon, so they decided to make an appointment to have a meal together. You don't have to go far. There are soup restaurants everywhere in Luodu. It's very convenient to have soup in the morning and make noodles at noon. Not far down the road is a soup restaurant. Su Tong ordered 3 large bowls of braised noodles, cold dishes of vegetarian dishes, and 3 bottles of Heibi soda. The 3 of them sat in the corner and ate. Because of the location, the meals are often very affordable. A large bowl of noodles is enough for an average adult, but today, the boss has learned a lot. Su Tong alone ate 5 large bowls of noodles, and Chimu and Chixin, 2 gray-haired old men, ate 8 large bowls in total. There are many young people who can eat. This is the first time the boss has seen such an old man who can eat. I thought to myself, isn't this a scam? If these 2 die here, I won't be able to continue my business. Fortunately, the boss's thoughts are unnecessary. After 8 bowls of noodles, these 2 old men were only 80% full. It's still far from dying. Seeing the 2 old men chatting and laughing, the boss thought to himself, it would be a shame not to start a mukbang business. Ignoring what the boss thought, Su Tong saw that the two of them were calling him uncle, so he didn't want to be polite. He glanced at the long sword carried behind Master Chixin and asked about the origin of the sword. You don't know if you don't ask, but Su Tong was really shocked when he asked. It turned out that after the master's wife broke into the Chongyang Palace at night and caused a big fuss in the Chongyang Palace and left in style, the head of the Chongyang Palace personally went to the tomb of the living dead to invite them out of seclusion. And this sword was Qiu Ziu's sword back then. It is a magic weapon that Yuan Taizha spent a year forging by asking people to search for meteorites from outside the sky. From then on, this sword has been the most precious treasure of the Quanzhen section. When Qiu Ziu was enthroned, he injected 3 sword energies into it and told future generations that these 3 sword energies could change the day, and kill immortals and evil spirits. When the Quanzhen religion was in danger of survival, this sword was used to suppress the movement of the religion. This time, the master's wife really pissed off these old Taoist priests. She took out the sword and planned to kill her with her sword. No wonder master's wife ran so fast. If the sword energy on this sword were to be slashed out, master's wife would be seriously injured even if she didn't die. Oh, by the way, Wine, what happened to Master Kinga? Su Tiaoxiao changed his voice and asked about Kinga. After leaving the capital, he didn't know where this alcoholic lunatic had gone. After hearing this, Chimu and Chixin's expression suddenly became much sadder. Uncle Kinga is a genius that has not been seen for a century, both in terms of talent and character. However, he is destined to have constant setbacks. When we were young, we once saw my uncle in the back mountain. At that time, my uncle's arms already broken, a generation of swordsmen, without his arms he is like a useless person. Both arms are broken. Su Tong's eyes widened and he found it unbelievable. He was now in the Dao killing realm and a land god, but in terms of swordsmanship, even if he was trying to flatter a horse, he could not compare to one of Kinga's fingers. What's more, in the age of Dharma ending, no one in the world can cut off his arms. Faced with Su Tong's doubts, Taoist Chixin said, since Yang Gongbao died suddenly and the world was in chaos, Japanese demons took advantage of the situation and preached among the people. On the surface, they distributed food to the people, but in fact they secretly killed people. Use human life as a sacrifice to summon the evil god of Dongying. After his uncle learned about it, he left with his sword that day. He came back 10 days later with a broken arm, but he cut off the head of the Dongying evil god and hung it on the latrine. Now the head is still suppressed under the thatched house on the mountain behind Chongyang Palace. Later, when the anti-Japanese war broke out, my uncle also went down the mountain. When he came back, he was wearing a military uniform, but his other arm was gone. I heard from the uncles at the door that it was my uncle who beheaded the head of ISE Shrine. But the other arm was also injured by the exploding artillery shell. The medical level at that time was limited and the only way to save his life was to amputate it. The 2 arms were just missing, and the Chunyang sword technique was completely broken at this point. Akame Genren recalled that when he was young, he once asked his uncle, "What should I do if I lose my arms?" My uncle just laughed a few times and said, "Except that I can't hold the wine jar to drink, there is no need to delay anything else." 3 years after the victory of the anti-Japanese war, my uncle passed away. Although he didn't say anything before he passed away, Akame always felt that the lost Chunyang sword technique was always a great regret in his uncle's heart. It's a pity that our qualifications are not good enough and we can't master Chunyang sword technique. We also feel unfair for my uncle. We just regret that we were born at the wrong time. If we had been 100 years earlier, maybe with my uncle's talent, he might not have been able to cultivate the golden elixir. Taoist Chixin was full of regrets. In fact, his master's uncle's cultivation level was not very high. It was entirely due to the era. If it were not for the Dharma age, who could rival him? When Su Tong heard this, he just lamented that fate was unpredictable. Kinga was not the only one who was deceived by the Dharma ending age. A genius like his own master was also stuck in the Grand Master realm for his whole life and never made any further progress. It's getting late, we should go back to the mountain. Don't forget the appointment of the 12th lunar month. We will be waiting for you outside the Chongyang gate. Seeing that it was getting late, Akame Genren stood up and saluted Su Tong before saying goodbye. It will definitely live up to the promise. Su Tong held his hand, and this time the two Taoists stopped hiding. Senior brother, why are you leaving so early? I also want to ask my junior uncle to what level he has cultivated the Chunyang sword code. After walking out of the soup restaurant, Taoist Chixin couldn't help but complain to his senior brother. But I saw Akame Daoist glare, if you don't leave, you won't be able to catch the afternoon train. If you stay one more night, you'll have to sleep under a bridge. I didn't bring enough money. Boss, let's have another noodle dish. After the two old Taoist priests left, Su Tong motioned to the boss to bring him some braised noodles. Thinking of Kinga's ending, he couldn't help but feel a little indignant. He could only turn his grief and anger into appetite. Without 2 big bowls of braised noodles, tonight I can't even sleep well. When the boss brought the steaming noodles to the table, he heard a shout from outside the door, "Old Qian, the truck is unloading." Well. When the boss saw that it was the delivery person, he immediately responded and walked out. A slovenly middle-aged man unloaded the goods on the pallet truck. The boss counted the goods for a while and then took out the money to settle the bill. At this time, the middle-aged man handed 3 yuan of the money to the boss and casually removed a bottle of beer. Opened the bottle cap and drank heavily. Don't drive when you drink, and don't drink when you drive. There are thousands of roads, and safety comes first. Upon seeing this, the boss curled his lips and said to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man didn't feel ashamed. He got on the cart and shook the empty bottle of wine. This little cat urine is not enough for me to stuff between my teeth. You, boss, are not young anymore. Stop drinking all the time. Find a serious job. Don't be unable to find a wife in the future. Hearing this, the man grinned, waved to the boss, kicked up his pedals, and walked into the alley. As he walked, he sang to himself, I have cultivated merit in my previous life, and now I am prosperous. After drinking and drinking, I lay drunk at the temple gate and saw the immortals and Buddhas. I laughed at the immortals and Buddhas who were not as good as me, ha 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 ha. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 826. Head, we are ready. At night, Gao Zhou's excited wolf howl came from the team channel. The past few days of rest have made Gao Zhou very hungry and thirsty, so it's no wonder he is so excited. Su Tong's 300,000 script points were not thrown away in vain. During this period, Gao Zhou, Gu Zibai, and Chang Wogu almost soaked themselves in the exhibition. On the one hand, he spends crazily and updates his prop cards, on the other hand, he spends crazily. A day's training for 1,000 script points. After tossing myself to exhaustion, I went to the hot spring bath for a 3,000 script points. Even the food he eats is a high-end nutritious meal divided into 500 scripts. In addition to being expensive, these things also bring great benefits. Gao Zhou even quickly advanced the reverse training of life and death to the 8th level. 3 pieces of non-transformable bones were formed on his body. He was just one chance away from completing the 9th level. However, Gao Zhou's path to advancement is very strange. According to the reverse training of life and death, he is now no different from a living person. However, due to the influence of the prop card, it turned out to be a zombie-like form of non-bone formation. These are 2 extremely contradictory directions, but they are not a big problem. The practice of reversing life and death and not turning into bones are not contradictory. As the saying goes, if you want to practice martial arts, you still have to spend money. If you don't have money to practice it, Gu Zibai finally reached the Taoist realm after spending a lot of script points. At first glance, he may seem a bit weak in strength, but this guy is pure martial artist, and his explosive combat power can even crush Gao Zhou. In comparison, Chang Wuju seems very different, relying entirely on the stacking of a large number of prop cards to increase his strength. But in fact, this is the route that most players take. After all, not all players can get the inheritance. As for Li Bo, Su Tong has temporarily positioned him as the team mascot. As a peripheral member, the benefits are still extremely high. At least the prop cards they eliminated will be given to Li Bo as long as they are not too valuable. After all, the team is really not short of money now. To use Li Yunlong's words, they have never fought such a wealthy battle in their life. This feeling is the same as when you take sildenafil, apply Indian blood activating oil, and then walk straight into the massage room. Okay, let's meet in the lobby. Su Tong nodded, stretched, sat up from the sofa, and waved to Chang Wuju and Li Bo in front of him. Let's go. The three of them walked out of the room and got into the elevator. I saw the elevator going down slowly. Su Tong and Chang Wuju were both calm. Li Bo looked a little nervous. He raised his head and looked at Su Tong. Boss, this certification script, I heard it is very difficult. Can I do it? Holding back. He had only heard of certified players, let alone certified level scripts. It's really hard for Su Tong to answer this question. If the script was set in ancient times, even in the Ming dynasty, it might not be easy. But this time the world of the script is modern, which means that the characters in the plot should not be very strong. The stronger ones may be the players they have to face. Thinking of this, Su Tong patted Li Bo on the shoulder and told him, don't expose yourself, try to integrate yourself into the characters in the script. The higher you integrate, the smaller the risk of exposure. We will help at critical moments. Hearing Su Tong's words, Li Bo suddenly felt more at ease and kept these words firmly in his heart. Ding! At this time, the elevator door opened, and what came into view was not the neat corridor hall, but the script killing sign with flashing neon lights. After Su Tong pushed the door open, what appeared on the bar was not the girl Su Tong was familiar with, but Thalia, who had big breasts and a big butt and a charming face. Hey, long time no see, you are getting more and more surprising. Thalia looked Su Tong up and down and found that Su Tong actually cut the Tao in an extraordinary way. She was immediately surprised. The last time she saw him, this little guy had not yet become a Taoist. Now he has actually entered the realm of Tao cutting. This speed is amazing. It surprised her. It's just good luck. Su Tong sat casually in front of the bar. This scene made Li Bo, who was following behind him, extremely envious. The bartender and the host usually treat me with a cold face, and it seems like they have lost a lot of money if they say one more word. Thalia took out a bottle of soda from under the bar and placed it on the table while whispering, "Try this." Su Tong picked it up and took a sip, and immediately frowned. It tasted a bit sweet and he didn't like it very much. However, Thalia stretched out her hand to Su Tong with a smile, 3,000 script points. Su Tong glared. It was not because of the strong wind that he had money. He looked at the soda in his hand doubtfully. This thing has 3,000 script points. This is... Before he finished speaking, Su Tong narrowed his eyes and suddenly changed his tone. This is too cheap. Let's have another drink, one for each person. As he spoke, he traded 15,000 script points to Thalia, in addition to the three of them, and also gave them to Gao Zhou and Gu Zibai. It's okay to be free all the time. I'm used to spending money during this time, so I don't think it's a big deal. Li Bo was so scared. When he heard that this thing actually cost 3,000 script points, he almost shouted, "I don't want to drink, I want money." But seeing Thalia looking at him with a smile, Li Bo suddenly trembled with fat. After all, he didn't dare to shout these words. Li Bo took the soda with a painful look on his face, and after taking a sip, Li Bo's eyes widened and he heard the prompt from the prop booklet. You drank a special prop, the juice of the goddess of destiny, and randomly obtained a privilege. Ding! You get the privilege, the pendulum of fate strikes. Huh! Li Bo blinked. He didn't expect that this drink could increase privileges, but he had never heard of this privilege. At this time, Su Tong glanced over and took a look at Kimin with his life eye. He found that Li Bo had a big bronze bell in his luck. He didn't know what this bronze bell meant. This guy is indeed a very lucky baby. It turns out that the privileges drawn from this juice are not 100%. The privileges Su Tong drew only increased his luck by 30%. The same was obviously true for Chang Wahen. On the contrary, Li Bo actually won the privilege. Although he didn't know what the bell meant, it was always better than nothing. When the three of them arrived at the lobby, they saw Gu Zibai and Gao Zhou already waiting in the lobby. Seeing Su Tong coming with 2 glasses of soda, the two of them hurriedly waved. Su Tong looked around and found that besides them, there were several people sitting scattered in the hall, and his eyes glanced at Su Tong and others from time to time. Here. Good stuff, don't make any noise. Su Tong handed the lucky juice to the two of them and said in the team channel at the same time. After hearing this, the two of them took the juice in their hands casually, as if they were not in a hurry to drink it. Soon, 2 more people walked in one after another. These 2 people should be a team, a man and a woman. As soon as they entered the door, they sat down with their backs to the corner. Su Tong silently observed the circle. In addition to their team, there should be 3 other teams here. But the people in the other 2 teams sat spread out deliberately, and Su Tong couldn't tell whether they were the same team. Boom! 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 At this time, the time bell rang, and the small door in front of him slowly opened, and a white-haired young man wearing a neat suit walked out. When Su Tong saw this person, he immediately frowned. Taiwan. I knew this guy was back, but I didn't expect to meet him as host as soon as he came back. Although I wasn't worried about what this guy would do again. But when Su Tong saw this guy, he couldn't help but feel a very disgusting feeling in his heart. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Script Killing Experience store. As the host of this event, I need to make a statement in advance. This scenario world is a cross-regional hunting scenario. Whether you are willing or not, after entering the scenario world, you will become an alliance member. If you hunt alliance members, you will be punished. If the alliance mission fails, you will all be punished. After not seeing each other for a while, the voice on the stage has become much shriller, and even the behavior is very uncomfortable. The way he moved his fingers back and forth as he spoke reminded Su Tong of ADHD patients. As soon as these words came out, everyone including Gao Zhou and others looked at each other and suddenly became less alert. With the relationship of alliance, at least everyone will not be enemies with each other. Next, please come with me and start this adventure. Mr. Tai twisted his fingers in a circle on top of his head like a butterfly, then swung his fingers behind him, and saw the door behind him slowly opening. A long corridor appeared in front of everyone. Seeing this, everyone stood up and walked forward. The corridor was very long, as if it had no end. But the more they walked forward, the fewer people there were. One after another, people saw a door and walked in. It's as if every door can only be seen by you. Not long after, Gao Zhou and others disappeared one after another besides Su Tong. At this time, Tai walked up to Su Tong, grinning and showing a set of neat gold teeth. Long time no see. It's been a while since I last saw you. Su Tong did not dodge Mr. Tai's gaze. Instead, he raised his head and scanned Tai's body up and down with scrutinizing eyes. Although this seems very rude and arrogant, Su Tong now has the qualification to make Taiwan look up to him. The corner of Tai's mouth twitched a few times, and he walked to Su Tong's side with a smile. What happened last time was my fault. I'm very sorry for it, and I paid a huge price. Tai's attitude was very conciliatory and he took the initiative to apologize to Su Tong. People must be strong. This is the naked reality. If you are weaker than me, I will step on you. If you are stronger than me, I will support you. Taiwan is very aware of its current embarrassing position. If this cross-regional script fails, it will be demoted again. At that time, it will have to vacate its position obediently and get down to be a receptionist. Therefore, Tai Fei not only didn't care about Su Tong's attitude, but was very happy because it was the attitude that a strong man should have. Su Tong snorted coldly and stopped discussing the matter with Tai. This was obviously a good signal in Taiwan's eyes, so he hurriedly said, "This cross-regional battle is very special. If you can kill more than 7 people from the opponent's camp, I can give you an extra special reward." That's it? On top of the script bonus. Tai's remarks really surprised Su Tong. He tilted his head and looked at the stage. What about more than 7? Hey. The more, the greater the rewards. Su Tong nodded when he heard this. Good deal, I like it. But then Su Tong Xiao's voice changed. But I'm not a murderer, find someone else. He doesn't mind killing people, but he never kills people simply for the sake of killing people. Whether he wants to kill or not, how many people he wants to kill, Su Tong prefers to follow his own temper. Tai frowned for a moment when he saw this, and when he was about to say something, a hand patted his shoulder. Looking back, he saw Aimee standing beside him, shaking her head at him. You can't do this. After saying that, he shouted to Su Tong, hey. When Su Tong heard Aimee's voice, he turned around and heard Aimee say, the camp that is fighting you this time is the Japanese script club. Su Tong raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this, waved his hand to bid farewell to his sister, and then opened the door in front of him without looking back. Only when he closed the door did he hear Su Tong's voice from the crack of the door. You can't kill someone, okay, except for beasts. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 827. Du Chi Du. The sea breeze mixed with the smell of fish blew on his cheeks, and a pair of black and white eyes slowly opened. Looking up, I saw hot white smoke rising from the ferry's big chimney. Ding. This script world is a hunting script, so please be careful. Ding. If you hunt enemy and allied players, you can draw an extra prop card. Tip. The team channel system is temporarily unavailable until the identity task is completed. Main Mission 1, Zhixingtang. Task requirements: find the contact person of Zhixingtang, and under the guidance of the contact person, obtain the approval of Zhixingtang. Mission time: 3 days. Mission failed, randomly given a negative privilege, cannot be purified, cannot be changed, until the end of the scenario world. Along with the prompt, some basic information came into Su Tong's mind. He walked to the ship window behind him and could vaguely see the appearance of a man through the reflection of the glass. He was in his early 30s, with stubble all over his face and long braids on his head. He looked fierce and difficult to get along with. Well, a bit old. Su Tong examined his appearance and compared the information in his mind. Du Nanan, a Tianjin boxer, resented the incompetence of officials. After killing several corrupt officials, he was forced to flee. Later, he was taken care of by the boss of Zhixingtang in Shanghai, so he bought him a boat ticket and fled to Hong Kong. Not a good status. Su Tong was thinking about his background. This identity was obviously a bitter one, just as Su Tong was thinking about it. Boom, boom, Boom. Suddenly, there was a violent sound of smashing glass in front of him, interrupting his train of thought. When he looked up, a foreigner with yellow hair and a big nose was glaring at him with wide eyes, cursing in English, "Go, go, you deserve to die, yellow-skinned ghosts. If you look at them again, I will throw you into the sea and feed them to the fishes." Su Tong's pupils twitched. He was never easily angered, and an evil fire suddenly surged in his heart. The foreigner was so stunned by Su Tong's gaze that he froze in place for a moment. "Brother Do." Just when Su Tong was about to take action, a shout came, followed by a middle-aged man who was more than 10 years older than him and rushed over and stopped in front of Su Tong. "Brother Do, don't argue with these foreigners, let's talk over there." Su Tong looked at this person up and down, and memories came flooding back. This person named Zhang Ju was the owner of a theater troupe. Originally, Bai Mudan, the famous actor in the troupe, was making a lot of money in Shanghai, and she was considered a slightly famous boss in Shanghai. But who knew that after seeing the colorful world of Shanghai Beach, Hua Dan became interested and decided to work in Shanghai. "I followed a gangster brother and relied on his power to kick him out of the theater troupe. Feeling discouraged, I bought a boat ticket and prepared to go to Hong Kong to make a living. Interestingly, just the night before Zhang Ju boarded the ship, the underworld eldest brother and Hua Dan both died in bed. It is said that when people found out, Hua Dan and the underworld eldest brother died in a tragic manner, and Hua Dan's intestines were entangled in the underworld, the eldest brother's throat felt as if Hua Dan had taken out his own intestines and strangled him to death. Su Tong didn't know whether it was Zhang Ju who moved his hands, but he could tell that although Zhang Ju had no moral character, there was an evil spirit lingering on his forehead, which was obviously not a good thing. The two of them walked to the other end of the deck, and Zhang Ju took out a haidman from his arms and handed it to Su Tong. Su Tong was not interested in this kind of unfiltered old cigarette, so he waved his hand and stopped smoking. "Brother Do, I heard about your reputation when I was in Shanghai, but even a local dragon can't defeat a local snake, let alone a foreigner." Zhang Ju opened his mouth to advise. Su Tong said nothing, looking at the figures squatting on the ground on the side of the deck. They were all sallow and thin, and their bodies exuded a sour and pungent smell. Seeing that Su Tong didn't speak, Zhang Ju put the cigarette to his mouth and took a deep drag. "You are young and vigorous, but don't be dissatisfied. Our Qing dynasty has been destroyed. The emperor who was the palace protector for only a short time died suddenly. Now I heard that warlords are fighting everywhere and the people are in dire straits. This country, if we are dead, we can still maintain peace in Hong Kong, the concession, thanks to these foreign adults." Su Tong originally thought that Zhang Ju could have other lofty words, but he didn't know that it was such nonsense. But then he thought about it and couldn't blame him. The Manchus were really too far-fetched. Although the truth is this, Su Tong disagrees with these words and was about to say something. Len Buting heard scolding from behind, "Fart, these foreign devils are selling cigarettes, selling people, burning, killing and looting. They are just a bunch of living bandits. The country is ruined. We are waiting for Chinese men, 7 feet tall. Sooner or later, these foreign devils will be driven out of the country." The two of them looked back and saw a young man who looked like a student running over and yelling at Zhang Ju. "Ah!" Zhang Ju curled his lips when he heard this and didn't take the young man's words seriously at all. He took 2 puffs of cigarette and asked, "It's easier to talk than to sing. If you really have the ability, go and do it with real swords and guns. Here, what annoys you the most about your pretentiousness are students like you who don't know how high the sky is and how high it is." When the young man heard this, his eyes widened. Just when he was about to have a good argument with Zhang Ju, a rapid buzzing sounded from the wheelbarrow, and then he heard someone on the deck shouting, we're here, there is the dock ahead." After hearing this, many people on the deck stood up and looked up. Su Tong took a closer look and saw a row of neat houses standing on the coast from a distance. They had white walls and the houses all looked like three-story buildings. They even looked better than the houses in third-tier cities in reality. They are much more atmospheric. Next to the coastal street, a bus slowly passed by. From time to time, you can see private cars passing by. This scene made everyone's eyes widen. The first impression it gives people is that it is prosperous and clean, which even gives people a deep sense of inferiority. Compared to China, even the prosperous capital city cannot see such a prosperous scene. However, under this bustling scene, more is not as clean as it seems on the surface. At least Su Tong saw at a glance that there were shirtless men on the pier. They were so skinny, and they were barefoot, carrying more than 100 pounds. The cargo, which weighed even more than its own weight, struggled to move forward. And the so-called foreign adults, all in suits and leather shoes, were admiring the scene from above. If a worker is seen to be slower, someone will come up with a whip to urge them to work. Quick, let's pack up and leave. When Zhang Ju saw this, he didn't bother to argue with the young man. He pulled Su Tong, picked up his suitcase, and hurried forward, wanting to be the first to get off the boat as soon as possible. Boom! When the boatman tied the rope to the pier and put the two large wooden boards on the pier, people on the deck immediately began to step on the wooden boards to get off the ship. Zhang Ju pulled Su Tong and was about to get off the boat, but Su Tong grabbed him. As soon as I looked at it, I saw that underneath the dock was a completely square open space, surrounded by iron nets and stacked cargo boxes. It didn't look like a normal dock. Looking back, I saw that the foreigners were already standing on the upper deck, gathering together one by one, talking and laughing, as if they were waiting to see some good show. Wait, don't go down yet. Su Tong pulled Zhang Ju back. Zhang Ju was a smart man after all. Seeing Su Tong's demeanor, he began to feel that something was wrong. At this time, there were already people on the deck urging everyone to start disembarking. Some of the men, women, and children came in an aggressive manner with sticks in their hands. Even if they felt something was wrong, they had no choice but to walk under the boat. Get off the boat, hurry, hurry, hurry. A tall and thick-set man, wearing a black coat and holding a short stick in his hand, was urging people to get off the boat with curses and kicks. When he walked up to Su Tong and Zhang Ju, he looked at them first. When he saw Su Tong's sinister face and eyes, he immediately subconsciously dodged away from them and walked away from them. Once around, they ignored the two and continued to urge others to get off the boat. This is not a pier, don't get off. At this time, a burst of shouting rang out from the crowd, and it turned out to be the student just now. The student desperately pulled the people around him to keep them from getting off the boat. But then someone hit him with a stick and knocked him to the ground. Damn it, how dare you ruin your grandpa's good deeds. The group of people who were urging him to get off the boat picked him up and kicked him off the boat. When these people got off the boat, they saw some strong men in black clothes coming out and began to curse and tell these people to stand up and hand over their money and salutes. The student just now was beaten on the ground by several men in black with sticks, as if to show everyone the consequences of resistance. Seeing this, Zhang Ju's expression suddenly changed, and he clutched his luggage tightly with one hand. Even though he was standing on the boat at this moment, he was so frightened that he broke into a cold sweat. They are local gangs. They took advantage of these people's first arrival and drove them off the boat. Zhang Ju said tremblingly. When he came here, he had also heard that this kind of local snake had a deal with the ferry, and specialized in luring people off the boat, and then robbed the property. Unless the family was willing to pay money to redeem the person, the man would be kidnapped and the woman would be used as a young man. I want her to be a J girl. He thought it was too exaggerated at the time, but he didn't expect to see it with his own eyes now, and he was almost taken off the boat. When he thought of this, he couldn't help but cast a grateful look at Su Tong beside him. Do little brother, this time, where is the person? As a result, when Zhangju looked up, he found that Su Tongren had disappeared. Brother do. Looking left and right, Zhangju suddenly saw Su Tong getting off the boat at some point. He suddenly thought to himself that it was not good and wanted to follow him, but after taking a look at the box in his hand, he still did not dare to get off the boat. I could only stand on the deck and watch anxiously. I saw Su Tong walking straight towards the people who were beating the student. Seeing the student who had been beaten on the ground, Su Tong suddenly raised his leg and kicked him. With a sound of bang, everyone saw clearly what happened, and saw a person flying out sideways and hitting the cargo box behind. He vomited out a mouthful of blood on the spot, and fell down and died. This scene made several other men in black freeze in place. When they raised their heads, they saw a rough palm slapped on the face, knocking the person to the ground. Only then did he see Su Tong rolling up his sleeves, squinting at these men in black, and saying with a fierce look on his face, "What are you looking at? Have you never seen your grandpa do?" Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 828. When Su Tong made a move, the men in black were immediately shocked. The leading man stepped forward and raised his fist towards Su Tong, that old man in the hall. The old man pinched his beard, and the new blessing is affixed with a gold horse, please figure it out. Most people can't understand the slang that this man speaks. Fortunately, Su Tong knew what this man meant as soon as he heard it. The translation of knowing man is, ask yourself where you came from. Logwan is Sichuan, Huzi is northeast, Xinfu is Hungmen, and Golden Horse is Shanghai Beach. Su Tong helped the student on the ground, but he didn't respond to the man's words, and just sneered, I don't have a round head in my travels, and I don't understand the time and space you have here. Those who come out to hang out don't have much respect, and they don't care about your rules. After Su Tong finished speaking, he walked to the wooden stakes used to tie the boats and slapped them on them. The thick wooden stakes were suddenly broken open. I'm thirsty, my friends in the horoscope, bring a bowl of water for everyone to drink. If you have no money, friends on the road, take out the property you just grabbed and share it among us. Hearing this, several people's expressions immediately turned uglier. Well, this was the king of the forest who wanted to play black and white. Looking at the cracked wooden stake again, I knew in my heart that the slap could not be delivered with such force by any practitioner with 20 years of experience, and that a bunch of people like them would not be able to withstand this slap. They immediately looked at each other, walked up to Su Tong, and threw the property they had just snatched to Su Tong. Then he handed over his hand, turned around and left. Su Tong picked up the package. It was full of fine gold and silver. Most of the people who came here had no intention of going back. They would inevitably exchange all their family's property and land for money before going out. Su Tong glanced at it and suddenly said with disdain, what scrap metal is not enough for me to go to a brothel to live happily? As he spoke, he threw the package away and let the people around him grab it. At this time, he heard a burst of laughter on the ferry. Su Tong raised his head and looked over, and saw the foreigners pointing here and laughing. They're laughing at us, dog eat dog. The students understood English, and after hearing their words, they immediately bit their gums with hatred, but they did not hate these foreigners, but hated the gangs who took advantage of the situation and only dared to fight among themselves and help outsiders bully their own family. Su Tong could understand the student's anger, so he patted him on the shoulder and said, if you fall behind, you will be beaten. This principle has not changed since ancient times. At this time, the ferry had sailed out of the pier again. Some people originally wanted to get on the boat, but they were kicked off one after another. The reason was that they could not get on again after getting off the boat. Brother do. Zhangju waved his hand on the deck, I'm waiting for you at Zhangji Pharmacy in Kowloon. If you need anything, come to me. Humph, this man values profits and forgets his loyalty, and he is also a villain. The students had a very bad impression of Zhangju. They felt that this person was full of the stench of the business world and was unjust for profit. He was definitely not a good person. Su Tong waved his hand towards Zhangju indifferently, then ignored the students and turned around to follow the crowd up. Although this is not a formal dock, it is actually not far from the dock. Su Tong walked along the path onto the street, and the students followed and thanked Su Tong. My name is Fang Jin. I am a student. I am coming to the new territories to study here. Thank you so much for your heroic rescue. Fang Jin said and bowed deeply to Su Tong. Su Tong took out his ears and looked at Fang Jin with squinted eyes. Are you rich? For it. Fang Jin was startled. He obviously didn't expect that the man who had just stood up for him would actually ask for money. After being stunned for a while, he took out a silk scarf from his pocket and opened it carefully. However, before he could take out the money, Su Tong grabbed it in his hand and said, "Lend it to me." "Ah, this is me." Upon seeing this, Fang Jin quickly stretched out his hand to stop him, but was pushed to the ground by Su Tong. I saw Su Tong stuffing the money into his pocket, throwing the silk scarf to Fang Jin, and cursed, "Why are you so stingy with this small amount of money? From now on, if you wipe your eyeballs with bright spots, no one else can get in front of you. Where can there be so many good people in the world?" After saying that, he left without looking back, leaving Fang Jin sitting on the ground with a look of shock on his face. Su Tong walked a few steps, glanced back, glanced at the men in black clothes in the corner, curled his lips, and strode into the street. In Du Nanan's memory, the contact person of Zhixingtang should be waiting at the pier to pick him up, but now he might not be able to rush to the pier in time. Since it was too late, I simply didn't go there. He walked to the roadside, bought a sesame seed cake and ate it in his mouth. Well, it tasted average, but it was still edible. While eating, I carefully thought about the memory of Zhixingtang. This so-called Zhixingtang is the largest pharmacy in Shanghai. The boss Dong Kaiumin is a well-known philanthropist in Shanghai. He donates money to serve porridge, builds bridges and roads, and is indispensable for everything. If people in the world are in trouble, he will also lend a helping hand and the money he lends will be enough. Never ask for it back. Therefore, it is called Xiao Song Zhang. The unlucky guy Du Nanan was desperate and was sent to the new territories at the expense of Boss Dong. In fact, it was because there were too many local snakes in this place. As the saying goes, if there is water and soil on one side and there are people on the other, even a dragon crossing a river cannot overpower a local snake. You, Dong Kaiumin, were a big boss in Shanghai, but when you came to the new territories, you were crawling with me whether you were a dragon, a lion, or a tiger. Zhixingtang opened a pharmacy here, and he spent a lot of money on it, but the troubles were also increasing. That's why I sent Du Nanan here after learning that he was very good at boxing and kicking, hoping that he could help Zhixingtang, or at least give Zhixingtang some control over things. Once you have sorted out your background, the next thing will be easier to handle. It's a town, right? Just enough to calm you down today. The last thing Su Tong was afraid of was being in the limelight. He ate all the sesame cakes on his hands and wiped them on his body a few times. When he looked back, he saw more and more people following him. He immediately grinned, turned around and walked towards the little boy next to him. Walk down the alley. The new territories, after being lost from the hands of that unsatisfactory old witch, has now become a prosperous place. The tall buildings can be seen everywhere. Compared with the capital city in my impression, it is completely different between modern and ancient times. However, on the narrow streets, apart from the various billboards, the thing that impressed me most was the long bamboo poles hanging across the houses on both sides, with clothes, beddings, and bed sheets hanging on them, which looked a little different. Visual sense. The gravel path was stained with mud and creaked when you stepped on it. However, although there are occasional Western businessmen on both sides of the street, most of them are Chinese. Su Tong, a man with pigtails and a coarse coat, does not feel out of place when walking on the street. But when people on the street saw his ferocious face, they would feel a little guilty in their hearts. At this time, a thin and short man walked out of an alley with his head lowered and walked towards Su Tong. He looked inconspicuous, but when he reached Su Tong, the little man suddenly he raised his hand and waved it at Su Tong. But who knew that as soon as he raised his hand, before he could open his palm, he was caught in Su Tong's big hand. The little man was startled and looked up to see Su Tong staring at him with a wide grin, squeezing gently with his thick fingers. Kick, kick, kick. There was a sound of bones breaking, and the little man's expression changed drastically. He instantly fell to his knees in pain, and saw white lime powder sprinkling from the gaps between his fingers. Before the little man could scream, Su Tong kicked him away with a kick. Damn it, hate him. Seeing that the trick was over, the man in black who was hiding in the corner immediately rushed out with an axe in hand. A thin monkey ran very fast, rushed in front of Su Tong in the blink of an eye, swung the axe in his hand and struck, but as soon as the axe came down, he saw nothing. Before he could understand what was going on, Su Tong's slap hit him. It landed on his head. Snapped. The watermelon on the table was slapped away hard, and a big hand held the watermelon and started to eat it. In the New Territories warehouse, more than a dozen workers were busy, except for a fat man sitting on a chair, munching watermelon leisurely. Brother Ben, there are too few camel fields in Yaomati. The few northern ants who came recently are unwilling to do it, and the guests are not willing to come. Grandpa is not satisfied. Ben gnawed on the watermelon in his hand and listened to Maze's report. His face suddenly became unhappy. The so-called camel land is a slang term that can refer to protection fees, but here it refers more to local chickens, and the corresponding bago refers to foreign chickens. You loser, didn't I tell you to go to the dock to catch me? If you can't handle this, it's your mother's fault. After Ben finished scolding, he threw away the melon rind in his hand and started to complain. Grandpa has to collect rent, I drink the northwest wind here, and the cigarette stall is not made, so I can light the rings like that. What are you doing? Ben was scolding happily when the door was suddenly pushed open and someone stumbled in. Brother Ben is not good. I saw the person running too fast and fell to the ground with blood all over his face. He looked horrifying. He got up and pointed at the door and shouted, someone is coming in. Brothers, you can't hold on. When Ben heard this, there was a hint of cruelty on his fat face, as if he had been accustomed to this kind of thing. He turned around and picked up the watermelon knife at hand, stood up from the chair, and lifted the horse in front of him with one hand. It's Chow Jose, they are still those bastards who make love to each other. How many of them are there? One. Maze hesitated and raised a finger. Hearing this, Ben was stunned for a second, and then kicked the person to the ground. Damn you, you are so desperate, you can't even deal with the person on the other side. As he said this, Ben ignored Maze and waved to the brothers in the warehouse to go out. As soon as the door of the warehouse opened, Ben was dumbfounded. I saw one holding his subordinate's hair and pulling him forward. Someone rushed up with a machete, but without even being seen, the other person slapped him, and the person flew out like a balloon without even making a single unnecessary movement. It was shockingly fast. After a while, 6 or 7 brothers were already lying on the ground, looking like they were breathing in but not out, so they were probably in danger. As soon as Su Tong raised his head, he saw the fat man in front of him. He grinned, and his fleshy face became more and more fierce. Ben's face also trembled when he saw it, wondering where this evil spirit came from. But in front of so many people, Ben gritted his teeth and said, let's go together. Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished speaking, Su Tong Gran suddenly came to the front, raised his hand to snatch the watermelon knife from Ben's hand. aimed at the round brain melon seed, and chopped it down. Next, instead of writing the place name, I changed it to the collective name of the new territories, otherwise it will be too sensitive. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shuigan Xiao. Chapter 829. Hello everyone, my name is Bin, and everyone on the street calls me Brother Bin. Grandpa Hu from the Yuxing gang was my adoptive father. Because I had learned some kung fu in my early years and was very courageous, I quickly became my adoptive father's right-hand man. I thought I would become bigger and stronger and create greater glory. Until now. Master Do, drink tea. Bin knelt on the ground, carefully took the teacup, and brought it to the fierce-looking man in front of him. I cast a careful sidelong glance at this man, feeling that his arrogant face was getting more and more fierce. He only waited for the other party to take the teacup, throw the tea lid aside, and drink all the tea in one breath. Then he raised his head and looked at the fat and big-eared head in front of him. Ah poof! After spitting a mouthful of sticky phlegm on the ground, Su Tong cleared his throat. Do you accept it? If you don't accept it, go and call someone else. I'm convinced, I'm convinced. Bin was confused. He had seen the strength of this man and would not dare to do anything if he had 100 more courages. Okay, you go ahead, I like it. I will take care of this land from now on, and you guys will pay me as usual every month. Bin's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He was really afraid of what would happen. He had seen some violent people, but he had never seen such violent and unreasonable people. How could he come to rob her so directly? Suddenly he looked confused, but, there's Grandpa up there. What about Grandpa and Grandma? I don't care about what you guys are doing. If he is not convinced, I will go find him now. After saying that, he took Bin's arm and asked him to lead the way. No, Grandpa, over there, ah. Before Bin finished speaking, his whole body was shaking with pain. Su Tong pinched his joints with one hand and twisted his fingers slightly, causing most of the bones in Bin's body to twist as if he was in unbearable pain. Looking back, he saw a bit of a sinister smile on Su Tong's horizontal face. If there's anything I can't do, I'll do it if I say so. There was nothing else Bin could do at this time, so he forced himself to walk in front and lead Su Tong. In fact, there was no need for Su Tong to look for him. The younger brother, who was already aware of the situation, ran back to report the news. When Su Tong dragged Bin all the way to the Yuxing gang, the leader of the Yuxing gang, Mr. Hu, was already sitting at the door waiting for Su Tong. Mr. Tiger, who is in his 40s, looks a bit like Sammo Hung in the movie at first glance. Although he is older, no one in the world dares to take a chance on him. When he learned that Su Tong had chosen one of his disciples and was heading towards him menacingly, Mr. Hu's face inevitably showed a bit of a sneer. In the past few years, he had seen many Jianghu people from the mainland. Some of them wanted to be gangsters, but in the end they did not survive the next day. Today he wanted to see what kind of hero was coming. I saw Mr. Hu sitting on the Taishi's chair, holding a purple clay pot in his hand. When he saw Su Tong pulling Bin over, his eyes and brows furrowed, and his heart inevitably trembled. He was also a member of the Lian family. When he saw Su Tong walking towards him with murderous intent, he knew that the other party was not some gangster. Looking at the middle-aged man on the left, I saw that he was also serious and silent, and the bad feeling in my heart inevitably became a little stronger. Master Hu, this is a tough problem. Do you want to ask brother number 1 to help? The person who spoke was lean and had a mustache. His name was Husan, and he was the white paper fan in the gang. The so-called white paper fan, also known as Chuan Doshi or Mr., is not only responsible for the operation of the gang, but also the master of the gang, representing the gang to tell the numbers. Courtesy first, then attack. Master Hu nodded and motioned for Hussein to go up and speak first. Hussein responded, stepped forward, and raised his hand towards Su Tong, but before he could say anything, Su Tong glanced at Hussein impatiently, "Get out." After saying that, without waiting for Hussein's reaction, he slapped her. Hussein's thin body could not withstand such a slap. Even with Su Tongliu's strength, he was stunned and was thrown away. His head hit the white wall, and his brains collapsed on the spot. This made Mr. Hu and the others' eyes turn red instantly. They had seen such violence before, but they had never seen such violence before. They dropped the teapot in their hands and said, "I'm so embarrassed." As soon as he finished speaking, the man next to him in a green coat rushed forward like a gust of wind, approaching Su Tong. He turned sideways and raised his left fist from below like a hammer to hit Su Tong's temple. This is the ultimate move of Yan Qingquan. Chen Yan returns to her nest. This person is a member of the Yuxing gang, his name is Qiao Jingsheng. He has been practicing martial arts in Tianjin since he was a child. He has been immersed in martial arts for more than 10 years. He is qualified to open a martial arts gym in any boxing gym in Hong Kong. The moment he strikes out, it is a killing move. The move is sharp and fast as the wind. 2 digits of people have died from this move. But today Qiao Jingsheng met the wrong person. Qiao Jingsheng might never have imagined that he, a boxing practitioner who has been practicing boxing for more than 10 years, would meet a cultivator today before he could shine in the literature. Faced with the powerful punch, Su Tong just kicked out lightly. It was obviously an afterthought, but in the eyes of outsiders, it looked more like Qiao Jingsheng straightened his waist and turned around on his own. Same as going up. With a muffled sound of bang, Qiao Jingsheng flew out like a green onion. Before his feet even landed, he felt that his internal organs were twisted into a mess. Puff. A mouthful of blood spit out, and the person fell to the ground, already dead. This time Master Hu and others were dumbfounded. Abin, who was still being pinched by Su Tong's hand, was even more honest. Everyone knew Master Qiao's kung fu. He could break a tree as thick as a bowl with one punch. Today, he was kicked by someone. Hell, this disparity in strength is a bit exaggerated. At this time, Mr. Hu calmed down and waved his hand to signal everyone to step back. He raised his fist and cupped his hand. He didn't even say bad words and said bluntly, "Who are you? If there is anything wrong with our Yuxing gang, if you don't live in a place, just ask for money and give people money." Su Tong let go of Abin and patted Abin on the shoulder. "I want him to be the boss." Ah! Abin was still rubbing his arms. He didn't expect Su Tong to say such a word out of the blue, and his face suddenly turned pale. Hearing this, Mr. Tiger stared at Abin. "You're a street kid, I'm so good to you, you want to be the second or fifth son." No. Abin wanted to explain, but Su Tong patted him on the shoulder and pointed to the Taishi chair behind Master Hu. "He can sit in this position, and so can you. Grandpa Du supports you, and I will kill anyone who disobeys." Hearing this, Master Hu sneered, patted his chest, looked around everyone, and then pointed at Su Tong. "Du, if you want this position, I will give it to you, but if you want this second-year-old to sit in my position, why should he? Being the boss means loyalty, financial resources, and a black horse. The first brother is my backer. If you don't have these, I'll give it to you and ask him if he's good enough." As soon as Mr. Hu finished speaking, as if to confirm his words, he heard a rush of footsteps in the distance. Soon 2 police cars, with their alarm bells flashing, were heading this way. A group of British soldiers holding muskets quickly rushed out of the cars and surrounded everyone. A British sergeant opened the door and stepped out of the car. When Mr. Tiger saw the sergeant chief, his smile became even stronger. He walked quickly to his side and handed a piece of gold to the sergeant chief. Then he pointed at Su Tong. Needless to say, the black muzzle of the gun was facing him instantly. Target Su Tong and a bin. Ha ha ha, it doesn't matter if you have great martial arts skills. With so many guns pointed at you, what can you do? You must be so powerful with a big sword, but you won't die under a foreign gun. Master Hu became arrogant and even mentioned the name of Big Sword King Wu. In fact, he only saw it from the newspaper. He was quite sorry at the time. He heard people in the church say that this man was already a master. If he had been born 100 years earlier, he would have been able to advance. Enter the court and become an official, and when you retire, you can live freely in the world. It's a pity that he was born at the wrong time and encountered a great change that has never happened in a century. This world is no longer the world of those who practice martial arts. Master Hu, I'm so humble. Abin's face suddenly turned pale when he saw these black muzzles. No matter how high your martial arts skills are, you can't stand up to this foreigner's musket. Seeing Master Hu's arrogant and domineering appearance, Su Tong sneered, "Then how much do you pay these foreign masters in a month?" "Humph, not much, just tens of thousands of silver dollars." The silver dollar that Mr. Hu is talking about is a token issued by the New Territories Bank. It is neither British pound nor Hong Kong dollar. But it can be exchanged for silver. Tens of thousands of silver dollars are enough to exchange for 10,000 taels of silver. It can be seen that the business of the Yuxing gang is indeed not small, otherwise I am afraid that I would not be able to spend so much money to honor these foreign adults. Su Tong sneered when he heard this. It turns out that after all, you are also a slave who kneels to make money. Master Hu's mouth twitched when he heard this, and when he was about to speak, he saw Su Tong walking forward and saying as he walked, "I also like making money, but I prefer to make money while standing." As he said that, he walked up to the foreign-nosed sergeant. Suddenly, the black gun was pointed at Su Tong's head. Su Tong calmly raised his hand, and a ring appeared on his rough finger. Extremely dazzling. No. Seeing the ring, the originally absent-minded Yang Naji suddenly widened his eyes and quickly waved his hand to the surrounding soldiers to put down their guns. Then he walked quickly to the ring, looked at the ring carefully, and tried to ask, "Who are you and why do you have this ring?" "Mr. Simon, what are you?" When Master Hu saw this, he suddenly felt bad. He hurriedly followed him and took a look, secretly complaining. Mr. Hu has been walking in the world for many years and is not a fool. When he saw Su Tong showing off the ring confidently, he knew that this ring must have a great origin. He immediately shouted, "He stole it, he must have stolen it. Look at his poor appearance, this is definitely not his thing." However, Su Tong did not defend this. He just put his hand on his chest, made a sign of the cross, and then said, "Bishop Unlitate can prove my identity." When the foreign-nosed sergeant heard the name, he immediately stood in awe. Not everyone knew Anratat's name. Su Tong handed the ring to Yang Bai, "Any bishop in the church can prove it for me." After speaking, Su Tong pointed at Lord Tiger and said, "Please arrest the sinner. He has blasphemed the Lord and is disrespectful to the church." Hearing this, Yang Zi turned back to look at Master Hu, then waved his hand, and the muzzle of the gun that was originally pointed at Su Tong was raised again, but this time it was pointed at Master Hu's forehead. At the last minute, I finally caught up. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 830. Mr. Simon, don't believe him. He is lying to you. Mr. Simon, I can give you money, more money. Master Hu was lying in front of the car window, shouting loudly, still making the final struggle. He couldn't figure out how an outsider could get involved with these high-ranking foreign adults in an instant. Especially after seeing that Simon, who usually ignored him, was so respectful to this vulgar martial artist, it was even more incredible. It's just that no one would answer his answers. Even those rude foreigners unceremoniously raised the butts of their guns and hit Mr. Tiger on the back of the head in order to make him quiet. Mr. Du, I feel deeply guilty for my reckless behavior just now. Please forgive me. Simon's expression was very humble, and this scene simply made everyone in the Yuxing gang dumbfounded. In the past, when they went to give money to the foreigner wanted to look at them with his nostrils. Not to mention this foreigner, even those foreigners didn't treat them as human beings. We have a proverb in China, he who does not know is not guilty. I would like to meet the local bishop and hope Mr. Simon can help. Of course. I will send someone to ask for Bishop Simpson. I believe he will be very happy about your arrival. Simon was naturally very happy with this request, because he was still unsure about the origin of the yellow-skinned Chinese in front of him and why he had angel tears that symbolized the authority of the church. The reason why Mr. Hu was captured was to treat it with caution. After all, when it came to the church, he, a small colonel, no longer allowed him to have the slightest qualification to weigh in. Simon turned around and sent for Bishop Simpson. What are you still doing? Su Tong took advantage of this opportunity and looked back at Abin, who was already dumbfounded. The ferocious look in his eyes made Abin jump all over. He quickly got up from the ground and walked to the front to invite Su Tong and Mr. Simon into the hall. Rest. Mr. Hu's business is good, so the house is also well built. It looks like a 3-story small Western-style building from the outside, but the decoration design inside is very elegant. There is also a plaque hanging in the lobby on the first floor with the words loyalty and righteousness written on it. After the two sat down, Abin hurriedly ran out the door. What he wanted to do, of course, was to get on top. Only then did Su Tong wake up Abin, and then he realized that he might really be on the rise. Mr. Hu was caught, Hu San died, and Xiao Jingsheng died. It was logical that he became the talker of the Yuxing gang. Although according to the rules, new talkers could only be chosen from the double red stick. But Xiao Jingsheng is dead, so who cares about the rules? As soon as he went out, Abin quickly called his best friends and ordered them to quickly pick up those big stalls, cigarette stalls and fish egg stalls from Mr. Hu. And asked them to release the news that Mr. Hu was included in the register. Now he, Abin, is in charge and is the new grandpa of the Yuxing gang. The news spread quickly, and it immediately stirred up waves. Although the new territories is the territory of those foreigners, dragons and snakes are mixed here, gangs are rising, and there are countless gangs. There are more than a dozen with the prefix Xing alone, and even more with the prefix He and Hong. But the most powerful among them are just a few. For example, the Chaozhou Tsai mentioned by Abin is a big gang organized by people from Guangdong in Chaozhou, and the Hongsheng Society. Ma Jiao Tsai refers to a gang organized by people in Macau, and Shenhe. In addition, there are countless prefixes of different sizes such as Pao Ge Gang, Qing Gang, etc. In contrast, Mr. Hu's Yuxing gang is either big or small, but one thing is that Mr. Hu's backer is Brother Yi, the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Yang. It is precisely with the support of foreign adults that Mr. Hu can eat so many stalls in one go. It was precisely because of this that Abin dared to collude with the ferry to take the newly arrived refugees off the boat in advance and rob them openly. So many people couldn't believe it when they heard the news that Mr. Tiger was on the list. The so-called thieves take away the mountains, the officials take away the food, and they are registered and spend half their lives in jail. It doesn't make sense that Mr. Tiger is on the list, but his subordinate Ma Zhe is in the position. Interested people naturally began to inquire about the news. At this moment, an even more shocking scene was taking place in the hall of the Yuxing gang. When Bishop Simpson of the new territories received the news and hurried over, the bishop fell at Su Tong's feet with almost tears in his eyes. Then, in the eyes of everyone who were surprised, shocked, and even a little disgusted, he took Su Tong's finger and kissed Su Tong's ring affectionately. This kind of hand-kissing ceremony is not uncommon. After all, foreign adults in the new territories seem to be very keen on this kind of taking advantage of others. They can be seen everywhere on the street, either with their hands or with their faces, and they have become accustomed to it. But the partners of these foreign adults are often blonde and blue-eyed foreigners. Not to mention immoral, at least they are pleasing to the eye. But the scene in front of me, a fat bald man in his 50s, holding a big handful of calluses and kissing him wildly, and then looking at the owner of this hand, with a fleshy face and a fierce look in his eyes, this scene is really, it's too harsh on the eyes. But what they didn't know was that Colonel Simon's eyes were almost popping out of his eyes compared to the burning eyes. He knew that this man might be related to the church, but he didn't expect that the bishop would kiss his ring face so humbly. This scene was too incredible. After the shock, there was a burst of fear. Simon thought about his impulse just now. If someone really fired the gun. Thinking of this, Simon suddenly felt scared. The church's punishment was not something he, or even his family, could afford. Damn bastard, you almost killed me. Thinking of this, Simon secretly vowed to make that damned and despicable gang leader's life worse than death. The Lord God is with you. Su Tong's rough hands gently stroked Simpson's bald head. Well, it felt pretty good, but a little oily. Thank you for your blessings, your glory is with me. Feeling the tenderness from this hand, Simpson was moved to tears. His humble posture was more like a humble servant than a bishop. But this is not an exaggeration. Although his appearance has changed, Su Tong still has Michael's blessing mark on his body, plus Vatican advisor, and this angel tears, as well as the last time the Western script world brought rich reputation. Even when facing Su Tong, the Red Archbishop needs to be treated with the same level of courtesy, plus a layer of respect. After Simpson sat down, Su Tong asked about the local church with a smile. It was just a casual question, but in Simpson's eyes, this was the messenger's assessment of his performance, and he suddenly looked serious and said, "The location of the church has been determined, but the funds are still being collected." In the age of ending law, the church's divine authority is no longer able to suppress the rising military power. In addition, the royal family has drastically reduced the church's funds. This is nothing new. Su Tong, who had experienced a script with a Western background, was already familiar with this. Seeing Simpson's nervous expression, Su Tong waved his hand to signal him to relax and said casually. Bishop Unlitat also encountered such difficulties, but under his preaching, many devout believers responded to the Lord's call and raised millions of silver coins for the new church. Simpson was even more ashamed when he heard this. What kind of environment is there in the new territories, and what kind of environment is it in the capital city? Just a few anti-foreign movements are already extremely dangerous. I heard that since the sudden death of Xiang Gongbeo, there has been a melee between warlords, and the people are in dire straits. You can imagine how difficult it is to preach in such an environment. Bishop Unlitat's piety for the Lord will definitely be blessed by the Lord. Simpson quickly acknowledged Unlitat's contribution. So you should hurry up. Su Tong said, waving towards the door, and saw Abin hiding at the door immediately bending over and walking over. Before he could speak, Su Tong stretched out his hand towards him. Take the money. Abin nodded quickly, turned around and ran to Master Hu's study. He remembered that there was a folder in Master Hu's study. About half an hour later, Abin came down with a thick stack of silver coins and put the money on the table. Simpson put away the money with a smile. Su Tong said that in the future, the Xing gang would fully fund Simpson's church construction. Of course, the implication was that in the future, the Xing gang's money would no longer have to be donated to Colonel Simon. Although they both spend money, the gap between the two is huge. The former spends money on his own initiative, and he has the final say on how much he spends. The latter is a tribute to foreigners. Don't be too dissatisfied with others. I accept it just to give you face. Colonel Simon not only had no objection to this, but was happy to see it work. Friendship with the church was more important than money. A letter of introduction from the church was enough to help his family gain a lot of political capital in the country. Now, no one in the Yuxing gang dares to be unconvinced. If you want your fists to be strong enough, if you want relationships, foreigners will have to bow their heads and bow. I believe everyone has the answer already. After sending Simon and Simpson away, Su Tong clapped his hands and started to work as a shopkeeper. The rest of the messy things naturally fell on Abin's head. Originally he was a member of the Yuxing gang, and the things he took over were much simpler than what he took over, and the people in the Yuxing gang would not have any resistance. After all, the Yuxing gang still belongs to our family. Naturally, Su Tong's high profile was not just for a moment of pleasure, but a decision made after careful consideration. Since it is a confrontation between camps, regardless of strength, whoever occupies more resources in the early stage will naturally be more advantageous. And my identity is indeed not very good. If I stupidly go to the gate of Xixingtang directly, although I can complete the identity task, I am not rare for such an identity. To put it nicely, he is a town hall, but to put it unpleasantly, he is just a watchdog. This is not what I want. Su Tong picked up the teacup and took a sip. Isn't it just a town? No matter whether you are black or white, I want it.